This is the r/male living spaces view, as you can tell, because the nice view is the one that you get with the normal videos where you can see my plants. And this one looks terrible because, of course, I've got all the fitness equipment in here for working out, and that means I don't have space for nice things. So, like maybe put something on that wall sooner or later. Today, what I'm going to be doing is going over Chris Pratt's whole water thing. So basically, a few days ago, there was this massive thing sparked by this tweet about how basically Chris Pratt has supposedly been drinking 220 glasses of water a day in order to, get lean, get in shape so that he can play Star-Lord in his Guardians of the Galaxy role. And basically, the rule here, as it claims, is 1 glass for every pound he weighed. It says he was peeing all day long, every day. And of course, basically, a lot of people immediately weighed in on this. Obviously, Community Notes doing a great job here, immediately saying, hey, that's not true. But basically, to understand, that kind of water intake is incredible. It's like 15 gallons of water a day or something like that. Basically, physically impossible. You'd kill yourself by having way too much water way too quickly. And of course, a lot of people pointed this out. A lot of people were like, this is incredibly dangerous advice. This doesn't make any sense, etc. So this quote basically originates from this Vanity Fair article specifically about how various Marvel superheroes got in shape for their roles. Pretty fluffy stuff, sure, whatever. Interestingly, this is not something that is exclusively new. Like, Chris Pratt has basically been telling this story for quite a while, it turns out. You can see, if you go back a decent ways in the news, that he has basically made the same claim in the past as well, as far back as like 2019, 2018. Which entirely makes sense, no confusion there. It does turn out that basically, this was a misquote. So he did not, in fact, say 1 glass per pound of body weight per day, which would come out to 220 glasses, which is, it's like 15 gallons or something like that. He did actually say 1 ounce per pound of body weight. And it turns out that Vanity Fair had, in fact, misquoted him on this. And as a result, had several X'd the amount of water they claimed that he was drinking. So they said that the real value was 1 ounce instead of a glass, and that means that in total, instead of something like 15 gallons, you're talking about something like 2 gallons. Still a lot, but okay, a lot more reasonable, a lot more believable, and so on. And so then that raises the question, is there any reason to do this? Like, is there actually any kind of reason that you should be drinking a crap ton of water? And the answer is, like, maybe, but not really. So the reality is that, the probable reason why he was given this directive is because it was expected that this was going to help him lose weight, right? He was looking to lean out, he was looking to build some muscle mass, and so on. Now, when it comes to something like, your hydration, yes, of course, the reality is that you can be dehydrated. A lot of people go around their days, they have a few coffees or whatever, they're not super well hydrated, and the end result is that, yes, that could be potentially impacting your gains in the long run. That could be potentially impacting things like how well your body composition improves in response to training, and how well you sleep, and so on, right? So there is a potential there. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, overdosing, megadosing on water every day is somehow going to provide results or improvements to that process, right? Like, definitely you can get some benefit from going from, dehydrated to regular hydration. But going from regular hydration to whatever the heck this is, okay, is there any benefit there in terms of, building muscle mass, sleep, recovery, all that stuff? Maybe a little bit, but probably not worth it. You do see a lot of bodybuilders who tend to think that, they do need a huge water intake, and they'll carry around like a gallon of water jug with them all the time. And so there is a potential reason for that, which is somewhat based in the evidence, which is that, yes, drinking a lot of water can actually increase your expenditure. It can increase your metabolism. And basically the reason for that is that you find that people drink more water, they tend to lose a little bit of weight. Not a lot, like a little bit. I was doing a little bit of Googling. I read a few studies. Highly recommend against people just reading a few studies and drawing strong conclusions from that. But basically, what I was seeing is, things that were along the lines of like, oh yeah, maybe you lost like a couple kilos or something like that. Not a huge impact, pretty small. There are obvious mechanistic reasons why this would happen, right? So essentially, you have something that's called the thermic effect of food, which is that anytime you eat something, you expend energy basically just to break it down and extract energy from it. And that thermic effect is actually already factored in when we talk about the energy content of food. We talk about the energy content of something like, a gram of protein having 4 calories. What we mean is it has 4 calories net after you factor in the fact that you had to expend some energy to get those calories out of the food, right? So it's pretty normal that what happens is that when you increase your food intake, you increase your energy expenditure a bit simply because you are burning more calories, extracting calories from your food. And likewise, we can expect that there's probably some kind of similar effect in terms of water. You drink a lot of water, your body has to spend at least some amount of energy processing that, even if it's basically just to, pass it right through you and pee it all out. And so, yeah, ostensibly, you can imagine that that is causing you to burn a little bit more energy. I'd also say that it may help in terms of managing hunger levels. So I have found, particularly that when I'm like deep into a cut, I'm like super, super, super hungry all the time. It does help often to have something that is 0 calories, like water, like a diet soda, like tea, something along those lines, that you can drink. Because then basically what that does is that helps it so that you at least have something in your stomach a lot of the time that helps prevent like your stomach just rumbling and feeling super hungry. And so, yes, there is some benefit in terms of maybe if you're drinking a lot of water, that means that essentially it is preventing you from eating other calories that would, potentially be working against you when you're doing something like trying to keep your intake down and lose a bit of weight. Now, all that said, the question is not whether or not this method can work. I think it obviously can. The question is whether this is the best method, whether this is a method that is going to be your best option relative to its drawbacks, right? And I would say that there are pretty obvious drawbacks to this method, like namely the fact that it is going to be extremely uncomfortable to be drinking a crap ton of water all the time, having to pee all the time, and so on. I've lived that life. It sucks having to use the toilet basically nonstop all day because you have to pee like every other hour. And then, of course, you have to spend a crap ton of time actually drinking, all that water, which I don't imagine is going to be enjoyable after a certain point. And so after a certain point, it's just going to be like deeply, deeply, it's going to detract from your quality of life to try and keep up a routine like this. Now, and again, the effect is relatively small. So would it be easier for me to drink a crap ton of water, go through all that hassle, all that discomfort, risk something like water poisoning because I'm drinking so much water, versus like, okay, it maybe saves me like 100 calories, a couple hundred calories a day. I would probably just say, you know what? None of that stuff is worth it. I'm just going to go ahead and focus on my diet a bit more, cut out a couple hundred calories, or maybe do some mix of the two where I am increasing my water intake a little bit. Again, maybe helps me to avoid eating so much. And, again, that helps in terms of managing my calories, but I'm not overdoing it to the extent that I'm drinking 2 gallons of water a day, peeing it all out nonstop. So I don't think that this is good advice really on any level. I don't think that, you see a lot of people who, especially nowadays, who really recommend something like drinking a crap ton of water to lose weight. It feels very much like a very bro science, like outdated sort of technique that you used to hear like, in gyms from like jacked guys in like the 90s and the 00s or something like that. I just don't recommend it, right? So that is the deal with Chris Pratt's water thing. I guess, who's the bad guy here? Like, not really Chris Pratt. Like, he just kind of did what his trainer told him to do. Vanity Fair misquoted something. An account shared that on Twitter. It went a little bit viral. A lot of people dunked on it. Turns out, maybe nobody in particular is really at fault. It's just kind of one of those funny things that happens on the internet now and then. Whatever. Anyway, so that's all for this video. See you all next time. Bye-bye.